All right, everybody, welcome back to Culz Talks Pop Culture, the first one of 2025. And yeah, hopefully this year turns out better than 2024 was for movies. There are quite a bunch of big movies coming out this year, so I'm excited. I'm hopeful for quite a bit of them. Of course, it's January, which means it's the slow time of the year. Usually movies are dropped here the company thinks it's going to bomb, or they're just like, just put it out. There's no competition. So there is usually quite a bit of horror movies, which is weird because you think they come out in October, but come
It's
out
the
in
dead
January.
of winter.
Yeah, the dead of winter. Yeah, so tonight we got myself, we got David from Abnormal Voyages, and of course we got Grayson down there. Now, David, let's start with you, Wolfman. Growing up, like when was your first interaction with like the classic, or was it the 2010? Was it Universal? Like what got you
It was
into
definitely
Wolfman?
the classic. Like I've always been, growing up being an actor and stuff. I've always loved movies. So some of those classic horror movies, watch the old ones like Bela Lugosi and things like that. So definitely big fan of the original. And werewolves in general, I think, are a very interesting kind of subject of not only movies and stuff, but cryptology and things like that. So I do definitely enjoy a good werewolf story. Just not sure if this hit that mark.
Yeah, and even we've started our Goosebumps kind of journey, and they have quite a bit of werewolf stuff in there. Even
Mhm.
the Give Yourself Goosebumps series.
I
Now,
think
I did.
probably Fever Swamp's probably the most popular werewolf one there.
Oh yeah, I love. I
The
haven't reread it
Swamp.
recently, but I remember reading that as a kid. I
Yeah.
did rebuy it so I could read it because I was like, I want to see if it lives up. Now, I haven't rewatched the entire. Like, I have the Universal Monster Collection. I haven't watched them all back to back to back. Somebody said the original Wolfman is the weakest of the originals. Do you agree with that, David?
Um, in terms of creating like a new movie monster kind of thing, I would say probably just because the other ones got a little more of actual character. Like you've got Dracula, you've got the Mummy, which was one of the first like, oh, those are scary. I mean, you got Frankenstein. Those kind of created their own lore, their own worlds and history of their own. Wolfman was almost more of a this is a condition or this is a species kind of thing. So it doesn't really hone in as much because he's not the only werewolf. He's not just the only wolfman. I would say he's probably tied with Creature from the Black Lagoon. I mean, they're both iconic, both definitely, great, but just kind of not a strong story behind them as some of the other classic monsters.
Yeah, no. At some point, we'll have to do some deep dives on those. Maybe around Halloween Horror Nights. I don't know. We'll find out. Be a good,
That'd be cool.
interesting take. Now, Grayson, what about you? What was your first dive into the Wolfman legacy? We'll say.
The first dive for me was probably like in my late teens. I snuck away and watched the American Werewolf in London while I was
Great
on TV.
movie.
Fantastic movie. Yeah, no, it that was my first foray, and then ever since then, I was like, this is absolutely the best werewolf movie I have ever seen, and yeah, that still holds true today.
Yeah, no. American Werewolf is great. What are
Oh,
some other
sequel.
really good ones? I know a lot of people talk like The Howling. Um, what's that one with Jack Nicholson where it's like Wolf?
Wolf's okay, but it's
Yeah,
it's yeah, it's Jack
it's artsy.
Nicholson
Yeah,
like reaching the end of his career being just Jack Nicholson being a werewolf. So yeah,
yeah.
it's
Uh,
entertaining. That was, but yeah, definitely nothing like kind of just compares to the overall story and just aesthetic of American Werewolf in London.
well, plus there's that transformation scene, pretty iconic.
All done practically, which is
Mhm.
insane. But
I've
yeah,
seen I've seen the mechanics of the original way they did that.
have you seen the documentary of that?
Well, it's part of the if you go to Universal Studios, they have the horror movie and
Mm,
makeup show. And one of the things they show is that scene and then show you the actual like old prosthetics and the machinery that made that possible in there. And it's mind blowing that even with our technology now, that's still like some of the best, I think, stuff that's been put up on film. Like CGI is awesome and everything, but seeing it as an actual like applicator, like, oh, it's awesome.
crazy. I don't know if you guys ever watched like AMC's like October like Halloween month or whatever it's called, but they did like a whole deep dive, kind of like what David's talking about from Universal, but they did like documentary style as just talking about the development and like the actual process of creating all those like showing like the creation and like the whole workshop stuff back in the day of the Wolfman transformation, which was pretty sick.
When did that one come out? That was the 80s, right?
Yeah.
I want to say so, yeah.
Yeah, because the Thing came out too, and there's some pretty good, just like physical stuff going on with like it coming out of the body and stuff. It's great.
The one thing that a lot of people don't really know is that is an Ivan Reitman movie, or at least I didn't know going into that movie, but it is a really well done Ivan Reitman movie because it was following kind of in like that. Or did American Werewolf in London come before or after Ghostbusters?
I think it was before.
Okay, let me check.
Do you know originally when it was written, Dan Aykroyd wanted John Belushi to be in Ghostbusters?
Yes, sir.
That would have been a very different and interesting movie, I think.
So American Werewolf was 81.
No, John Landis. Whoops. Not Ivan Reitman, John Landis.
And then once
point withdrawn.
I'm a loser.
I know Aykroyd wanted them to change Slimer into like Belushi, like as an homage, and it was like so late. The animators were like, "Yeah, we did stuff." And he's like, "Perfect, it looks great." And now that we have Slimer, so I guess
that's actually really funny.
Yeah, I guess in Aykroyd's mind, Belushi still kind of had a part.
I mean, let's be honest. If Belushi was still alive and they would have been like, "Hey, we made this ghost to be you," he would have been like, "I fucking love it."
Well, David, what about the 2010 Wolfman with Benicio del Toro? Did you see that one?
Yes, I haven't seen that in a while. That also has Anthony Hopkins, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. He plays his dad.
I thought that was a solid movie. I enjoyed that. They did a good job. I think it was miles better than this one that we just saw. They kept true to the setting, but still making it feel like a modern movie and everything. I don't think they went too crazy with the special effects, so it didn't just feel like a CGI fest of what they could do at the time. And Benicio is a great actor. Like, he's usually nails any role he's in, even if he's randomly in Star Wars for no reason. I liked it. I'd probably give that a solid high 7, low 8, probably.
Yeah, David, to your point, I'd say Benicio del Toro is just acting when he's actually going through the transformations and everything. Top tier, what you expect. It was a really good job.
Greyson, what were your overall thoughts on that one?
Kind of similar. I thought, it was a decent retelling of the story. It was trying to, recapture kind of that magic of the Wolfman, setting. I think they said it a little bit earlier than even the original one. But
I think they did.
But I think that honestly kind of contributed to, the world and the lore and like the actual feeling of the movie. I think them being able to land both Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins kind of like I don't want to necessarily say their prime, but like when they were still putting out hits, it wasn't just them collecting paychecks like being in Star Wars or being in Transformers. They were actually still taking theater, seriously a little bit at that point.
Like you could almost believe they were father and son, even though they look nothing alike.
Right. It's like, he's British. He's not so British. It was, I think honestly with the overall, like, even though it wasn't everybody's like favorite, I think it's one of the better Wolfman movies that are out. I think it did capture like, that little element that I think every Wolfman movie needs of, that like that fantastical element of how is this happening and just like the horror of that, which I think they did really well.
Yeah, for me, there was a lot of parts I really enjoyed. The acting, like we've said, is top notch. Which, without those two actors, I don't know if the movie would hold as much as it did ended up, just because they do a lot of legwork. There are some really cool practical effects, I think, as well as the CGI is not too bad. I rewatched some of the movie recently, and I was like, it still holds up pretty well. Because around that time, a lot of the CGI was just a little overdone. So there was a lot about the lighting and that kind of stuff. So overall, I think it did what it was supposed to. It was a Wolfman story, but I don't think it did a lot new. And I think that's where the movie we're going to talk about too has issues too, is it just kind of does what we think it's going to do and nothing else.
See, but I would disagree on the point that I feel like the 2010 one stayed true to the original story.
Yeah.
Whereas this one tried something like they took the bones of it and made it something super different and not in a good way.
They tried to reinvent the wheel with this one, and
there was no need. You could have just done a solid retelling of Wolfman, and it probably would have been pretty successful. But instead, they're like, no, we're going to make it interesting and new. And it's just like, why?
I mean, to David's point, I think that's what happens to a lot of people that do werewolf movies is they try to, be like, they did this, but we're going to be different and unique. And I think that kind of ends up taking too much of their focus instead of just trying to make a good, compelling,
right, because honestly,
like this is.
yeah, the Wolfman is supposed to be more about like the father and son story at the heart of it, the family dynamics, things like that. It's not really even supposed to be horror. There just happens to be some horror elements and some danger, but it's more about the drama of the people. Kind of like with zombie movies, you're watching it to see like the real story is that humans were worse than the zombies usually, that it's the things inside us, it's commentary, it's saying something. And I feel like this movie totally dropped the ball on that. It was just like, let's do gross body horror as much as we can.
The classic I Am Legend kind of thing where he was the vampire's legends.
Exactly. See, that at least had something that's like, oh, to them, he's the monster. It kind of like, yeah, there's something inside. Like, that's what a lot of the classic horror was all about, was they all said something about your inner, who you were, your personality, kind of made you reflect on the world by seeing it through these monsters. Like Frankenstein's monster was never really a monster. He's just misunderstood, and the mob mentality, all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. I feel like they went with the wrong aspects of trying to copy the original Wolfman.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, in all intents and purposes, any major monster movie is essentially a disaster movie. The disaster, which is the monster, just applies pressure for what you see characters go through. Mm-hmm. And I think even in this one, you could kind of tell that they were kind of trying to go for generational trauma. But I think every other Wolfman's told that story way better, and you can kind of insinuate that connection from that way more than what was presented in this movie. I feel like this was just trying to essentially say look, we're doing everything originally, but we're doing everything else entirely different, which ends up just making a little bit of a boring movie.
Yeah, because to be honest, most of the elements of the original Wolfman, you could easily do modern day, just put it in this setting. Exactly. There was no reason to totally change the story on it. Change the time period and fit it accordingly, and you would have been fine.
Yeah, so I guess the journey to Wolfman 2025 starts back when Universal, much like a lot of these big companies, wanted to make a connected universe, which you think they'd be good at since they really invented it, but forgot because, the original Universal Monsters was connected, but that was a much longer time ago than, I guess, Marvel. So now everyone wanted to be Marvel. So, of course, you got
You're forgetting the major one. They had family, and it just wasn't family, so they couldn't really get the whole execution right on that. There was no Dom Toretto.
I mean, there could have been. Who knows? Dom Toretto is in Marvel, so see, it's all connected. No, but we got, what was that? Dracula Untold, right? That was another. What was their other one? I know there was another one, but
The Mummy.
Yeah, the one that killed it was Tom Cruise. The Mummy.
It was before the Mummy. There was two. There was Dracula, and then
they did I Frankenstein, where it's
I Frankenstein.
That wasn't Dark Universe.
No,
but this is how they were starting, and then they were like, okay, let's scrap it.
There was something else I thought.
Yeah.
Did you say Disney made the plans?
No, I said they scrapped it and then they made the plans. After Dracula didn't do well, I Frankenstein didn't do well, so they're like, let's try to make it a little bit more like what we had. Originally, they were going to bring in Brendan Fraser. They didn't. They brought Tom Cruise in. They made The Mummy. I like Sophia Boutella in that one, and that's about it. I also didn't like that they connected that movie with Mummy with Brendan
Yeah,
Fraser.
I
with the book and everything.
Frankenstein apparently never had anything to do with this. Totally different.
Well, there, I
I
know
think
there
what
was
Keegan's
one
trying to say is that they made, I Frankenstein and then the Dracula movie, and then as big as the Avengers got, then they're like, well, we have a whole collection. Let's just use
No,
it.
I don't think I Frankenstein was even made anything by Universal.
Well, I think you might be right, but let me check.
Yeah,
Well, there
I don't think
there
it
was
was never
another one.
planned.
Yeah.
So the slate of films that came out, it was The Mummy with Tom Cruise,
Mhm.
and then they're saying The Invisible Man, Renfield, and Abigail were all part of it. I don't know if that's true, but
No. So,
these are
because
apparently the ones that were canceled or paused: Bride of Frankenstein, Dark Army, Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, Phantom of the Opera. This can't be right. They're saying this. I gotta check that out because I know for a fact the Dracula movie was the beginning of it.
Well, and yeah, because I think the next one after Mummy that was supposed to go in production was Angelina Jolie's Bride of Frankenstein.
But we didn't even have Frankenstein.
Yeah, well, they
Frankenstein has to come out before Bride.
And then Johnny Depp was the Invisible Man. Javier Bardem, I think, was Frankenstein, right?
I don't remember, dude.
I don't know. I just remember they released a picture of no one was actually there. They just photoshopped it together.
Russell Crowe is going to be Dr. Jekyll, and then I think you're right. Javier Bardem was going to be Dracula, and then I think
who was Russell Crowe supposed to be?
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Okay. Yeah, they honestly, as soon as they decided not to have Brendan Fraser in The Mummy, it was done.
Yeah,
because I know Johnny Depp was going to be the Invisible Man.
Yes.
Javier was going to be Frankenstein's monster. Sophia Boutella was the Mummy, as we did see.
Yeah.
No, Russell Crowe. So apparently, Russell Crowe was supposed to be Van Helsing.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was Dr. Jekyll in the Mummy movie.
I don't know then, but it says here from Screen Rant that it was Johnny Depp as Invisible, Javier as Monster, Sophia Mummy, and Russell Crowe as Van Helsing.
See,
maybe they scrapped that once they knew they weren't going to do maybe they're like, we're not going to have Van Helsing. Maybe they had Russell Crowe on contract. So,
well, and I think that was Tom Cruise when he came in. He got a bigger role, and I think they kind of made him the Van Helsing, where he was going to slay all the monsters.
All right, it says the Dark Universe was scrapped for a number of reasons, chief among them because The Mummy did poorly at the box office. So that's the one that killed it. But those are the only two that came out, was The Mummy and Dracula. I don't think they had another one out.
Yeah, and it didn't help that their Mummy trailer came out with no music, and it was just Tom Cruise screaming, and that was it. Did you guys see the original Mummy one when it came out?
Yes, it was so stupid.
Yeah, no, I was kind of interested to see where that one would go, and unfortunately, it was very. I don't think it knew what it wanted to be. It was very jokey at times, and then try to be serious, and then try to be a horror. And again, the only part about that one I liked was Sophia Boutella, and the newer kind of take on the Mummy. Though it does a lot of the same things we saw in the 1999.
No, we didn't need it. We didn't need any of it. It should have been, they should have just re-released The Mummy into theaters and said, this is the Mummy we're going with. And if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. Because that is, in the world, there are few cinematic masterpieces that are just perfect. And the original Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser is one of those movies. There's nothing wrong with that movie.
Oh, I love the original. The second one's not too bad. Maybe there's a third. Definitely not as good as the first ones.
The third never happened. We act like that. No.
Yeah, once Rachel Weisz didn't sign up for that one, it's curtains.
Yeah. Now, could you have imagined if they would have built the Dark Universe then, and they would have taken Brendan Fraser as the Van Helsing character and let him face off against all the different monsters? Do you know how amazing that would have been?
Yeah, instead of Mummy 2, we got him versus
or even Mummy 2.
Frankenstein.
We can still do that. And then at the end of that, they get a letter from hey, we need some help in Transylvania. There's something weird going on. And he and Rachel Weisz go out there and have to fight Dracula. And come on.
Well, see, even if they have the original characters, Sorry, Keaton, go ahead.
I was just saying it was like almost like a paranormal Indiana Jones.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, have him be the guy who still like goes and hits up all those major spots and actually lends a hand. Be the Van Helsing that they tried to make with Hugh Jackman back in the day, but make it, different to where he goes into each story to observe what happens. So you see the Van Helsing being there and actually Dracula going on, then you see Frankenstein going on, you see all those stories. I see how that actually could be legit.
Like, honestly, I could have seen Brendan Fraser being like the Nick Fury and interweave through like end credit scenes or like endings helping out stuff, and
Put together
then
a team.
bring in and then we get a reboot of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
But actually be good.
Yeah.
But honestly,
except when people want to see.
Right, David, to your point, I think it's kind of the same problem that happened with this movie too. Is for some reason, I don't know why filmmakers just don't want to do this anymore, but it feels like nobody wants to have fun with anything. And I think that's why the Dark Universe kind of fell flat on its face, is it took itself way too seriously.
Yeah, because I guarantee you, nobody likes the classic Universal monsters because they scare us.
Exactly. It was a good observation in theater, and it was great to see like a piece of the times for what it was, but it's not like, everybody's still holding on to that today. It was just fun, goofy crap. And it's why we loved, The Mummy. It's why we loved a bunch of stuff from the early 2000s, is because it was having fun with a pulpy plot that actually, gave you a scary monster in the actual mummy that was in that movie.
Right, because Emotet is a badass. Like,
100%.
it'd be scary if he was chasing after you, especially when he did stuff like having the all the Egyptian people with the sores like under his mind control and stuff. Like, some of that stuff that's pretty scary. And then the scarabs, those are some of the scariest bugs I've ever seen.
Did you guys ever ride the Universal roller coaster for the Mummy before it got
one of the best roller coasters in the world?
100%.
I've only ridden it since it's remodeled, so
it's the same. It's probably even better than it was.
Really?
I will say, I think what they need to learn is the Universal movie monsters are not horror movies; they're adventure movies.
Yep.
That's what they need to be. That's, have some thrilling stuff in there. The monster is, a threat, but we want to see the adventure about facing them and what happens. We don't want it to be like, who's actually scared of the creature from the Black Lagoon?
Are you saying you don't get scared when you go to the pool and you're like, whoa?
I'm just saying, like, that's not that. I don't want to see a serious horror movie about that.
Isn't that Shape of Water?
No, she doesn't get scared of him.
Don't get scared.
So yeah. Anyways, after those, or I should say, after the one single movie did bad, and then obviously some other stuff came up, they kind of put the Dark Universe on ice. Now, Invisible Man was enough into production that they kind of let it slide.
It just wasn't technically part of the Dark Universe.
Yes, it wasn't a part of it, and then they kind of retooled it. Obviously, different actor. It was Lee Winnell who directed this one, comes in, and how the Invisible Man goes invisible there is vastly different than the original. Yeah, some people didn't like it. Some people liked it. Greyson, what were your thoughts on Invisible Man?
I thought, even though people wanted to be really upset about the way they did it, I think it kept both the science fiction aspect of it with the way they did the invisibility while making it realistic in the way it presented it, which I think is fair to do, especially in a story like The Invisible Man. I don't think that needs to be as fantastical because the threat was still there with the Invisible Man in that entire movie.
David, did you see Invisible Man?
He was invisible. How was I going to see him, Keegan?
Are you saying he was John Cena?
I've got to say, I didn't really like the version of the movie. The mechanics were fine and everything, but as bad as the movie was, I have to say that I think the best representation we've had of the Invisible Man so far, legit, probably is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think the way he's presented in there almost is like a roguish kind of guy. He's not quite a good guy, but he helps out type thing. And he had the classic bandages on his face and all that, like the classic look, but still being kind of a modern person. I think that's probably the best representation we've had of him in media. Because, that's a guy that you can believe, if it's saving, the world, he'll help out. But if you also found out that he took all his clothes off to go spy on women in the shower, you'd be like, no, yeah, I believe it. Like, it's just that's that little bit of scumminess that you're like, yeah, I think somebody who turned invisible, I get it. I think that's probably been the best one we've seen. I don't think Johnny Depp would have been the right cast for that. It would have been really weird.
Yeah, especially because you're casting someone to kind of be invisible
Yeah,
and
but
have a good voice,
But now that you've brought up
So you're
Lee
saying
Winnell,
Chris Pratt would have been good?
I like Chris Pratt.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Chris Pratt. He's just in everything.
I do not like, I think, Lee Winnell. The more I see of his stuff, it's all kind of one note. I mean, look at Wolfman with all the body horror and everything. It makes perfect sense that he's one of the guys behind Saw. We even had somebody.
Speaking of which,
we even had somebody have to take off their foot.
Yeah, that was a pretty solid cameo right there.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I don't think he's as great up and coming horror as some people, like, because I know he's got a lot of fans, but it's just not my style. I think I'm not a huge fan of his things. I'm not gonna flock to the theaters because I heard he wrote it or is directing it. It was all right, but I wasn't a fan of I liked Invisible Man more than Wolfman, but that's not saying a lot.
But I mean, in all honesty, I think Invisible Man was way much more of a more comprehensive movie. There was an actual threat, actual storyline. There was a beginning, middle, and end. And
we had a whole plot.
Exactly. We had actual characters that you could be invested in. It felt a little, hokey, but at the same time, I felt like it fit the situation. Everything was well acted. Everything was well performed. But this was definitely, this shows why Lee Winnell has never really struck out past Saw fame, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
He's really only
kind of B tier, and I think he's going to stay there.
Yeah,
because when you look at his movies, like outside of Invisible Man, Upgrade, I don't think got a lot of hype.
It was
Insidious,
okay.
I know like people like Insidious. I've never been a fan of the Insidious movies, and his is only Chapter 3, which I think might be the better of the 3, but not a huge fan of those movies. And then Invisible Man and Wolfman, and I know people are comparing it because it's pseudo Universal, and I don't know if Universal just is like, yeah, we just don't want to make any right now, so go ahead and do whatever.
I mean, they're copyright free now. They are public use. Anybody can use Wolfman, Invisible Man, all that kind of stuff. They were written back in like 1900. So as long as you're not saying this is the Universal, you're good to go. Like Frankenstein can literally be used in almost anything.
We don't want to give the Pooh universe any thoughts, though.
I mean, honestly, I think Lee Winnell was just Blumhouse's, Wonder Baby. They wanted to hang on to him, let him do his stuff. He gave him Insidious. He gave him, The Invisible Man. Since this was the production house that was kind of made Universal be another name in horror again, they were just trying to kind of keep paying it forward from what it felt like. This movie, whoever did the cinematography and the set design and all of that deserves to be looked at for a lot bigger projects than this, because when it was going into the the werewolf vision, I thought that just the look of it was cool. The idea of it was well executed. I thought the idea of it, not something that we had seen before. It was cool to kind of see it from his perspective, just seeing all the enhancements going on, like hearing the spider walking on the walls. Thought that was sick. But everything else just really felt lackluster. It felt like he's trying to be an art horror when he's just not at. His movies he cut his teeth on, making, Grimehouse movies, budget movies that weren't the best, but it got people, in the seats to see, Jigsaw torture people with traps. That was pretty much it.
Torture porn.
Yeah. I mean, that's all that's his bread and butter. He kind of need I think he was able to step out and show that he could be a little bit more versatile in some of the horror he does with Invisible Man. It obviously was pretty par for the course in, just the execution.
He's got his niche.
Yeah.
I agree. This movie did.
Yeah. So the development of Wolfman.
David, you were breaking up there a little bit. What'd you say?
Sorry, I said this movie definitely. It felt like it didn't quite know what it wanted to be.
100%. I think with that, so Keegan, are we gonna do a whole brief description of the movie, or are we just like diving into it?
Well, I was going to get into the production of the movie, then we can do like a synopsis of it and then dive into it.
Guys, if we keep this too long, it's going to be longer than the actual movie.
Right.
Hey, we still got an hour. We're good. Yeah, so no, this movie was in production for a while with Ryan Gosling. I think he was tapped to play Wolfman.
He
or play the
actually,
father,
he
and then
actually,
he produced it.
yeah, he actually brought it to them and said he wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Then the director that he wanted to work with, that they brought it together, that director bailed, so Ryan Gosling also left.
Yeah. Though he
You
did.
mean to tell me Wolfman could have literally been me? That's crazy.
Could have been. Yeah, so they kept it on the slate. They brought Lee Winnell, who was approached before Gosling, turned it down. Then Gosling, and then he came back and he was like, "Yeah, you know what? I have an idea." He said it was one of his first ideas, even before Invisible Man and everything. He had written it in like the backyard or something. And so they wrote 2 or 3 treatments and then they filmed it. So there we go. There's that. Greyson, now the story is pretty straightforward. It's pretty much a real-time movie. There's not a lot of, there's one day and then a couple hours at night, right?
Yeah, I mean that it's real quick. I literally just got out of the theater right before we started filming. So yeah, I would say I think the one thing with do you want me to go into the synopsis or?
Yeah, if you want to do synopsis, then we can hop into it. That's fine.
Yeah, okay. So movie starts off with Ben being a kid getting raised by his dad, who is ex-military. Takes him out on a hunting trip. They get attacked by the Wolfman after I forgot about the title card that talks about how a hiker got lost in 1995. And when they found him, he was, exhibiting traits of animalistic behavior. I forget the full Native American name for it, but
like the face of the wolf is like the English translation. Yeah.
So they encounter the Wolfman as a kid. The dad tries to comfort his son, saying it was a bear. And then we cut to him being in the basement on a ham radio saying, "Hey, I saw it. We need to go kill it because I want to protect my family." And he's talking to a buddy. Then it cuts to 30 years later where Ben is now an adult, has a kid, has a wife.
Now, did they capture the atmosphere of San Francisco in that scene?
I think it was New York.
No,
It's San Francisco.
It's
and
San
there's a bunch
Francisco.
of homeless people walking all over.
No,
I
it did
mean,
not capture it very well because Greyson thought we were on a completely different coast.
yeah. So yeah, obviously not. So yeah, they did catch from. I've never been to San Francisco, but apparently they captured it pretty well.
No, I've been there multiple times. They did not.
Fair enough. Anyway, Ben is accosted by a homeless man, tries to tell his daughter to listen to him, and kind of establishes the relationship that he and his daughter have. Very sweet, very close. Moves on to the next scene where they're back home. Does more establishing of the relationship he and his daughter have, then establishes the relationship that he and his wife have. Very millennial, very two career-oriented people who are not very emotionally close, but they're staying.
He's got a little bit of anger issues.
A little bit. And wife's a little emotionally distant because she's more focused on doing her career. She feels isolated in her life because her daughter is more attracted, or not attracted, but loves her dad more than.
Whoa.
Yeah,
this
no.
isn't the shape of water, Grayson.
That's
Not the shape of water.
Sorry, I got my wires crossed on that one. No, she loves her dad a lot more than her mom. At least her mom feels that way.
Just connects better, yeah.
Yeah, they're a lot closer than she's a lot closer with her dad than her and her daughter. So it establishes a little bit of that struggle. Then Ben receives paperwork saying that his dad has passed, gives him the keys to the farm, literally and figuratively. So Ben goes to surprise his wife at work, wants to make sure his family stays together, that they enjoy each other, and they enjoy being a family together. So they want to go do some time out in Oregon. They go out there. run into a creepy dude that is a kid that he knew from his past.
Who his dad was like calling. It was that kid's dad.
It was that kid's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was looking for his dad's plot because it's the middle of nowhere, Oregon. Runs into the kid. Guy tells him, hey, this isn't your dad's plot. This is my plot. I'll show you where your dad lived. Takes him up to the plot. There, they see a shape in the road. Ben swerves out of the way, careens down a cliff. And then turns out it's the Wolfman. They get attacked. They don't know what it is, so they run for Ben's dad's house, which is close by. There, Ben finds out that he was scratched in the truck, and we do see that in the truck. But and we do see Derek also killed off screen. But gets taken off. They run off to the house. They try to board themselves up, and then Ben starts undergoing the transformation into being a werewolf,
which is going to take the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it's a long, slow, pretty boring burn.
I will say it's more in the transformation of the Fly than the American Werewolf in London.
Agreed. I will say, so transformation goes on. They're trying to fend off the werewolf that attacked them. As the story goes along, Ben continues deteriorating, becoming more animalistic in his appearance, gets the gels, starts losing his own hair, but somehow gets body hair on top of the hair he's losing, which, makes sense. And then they get attacked one final time by the outside werewolf that they got attacked at by the beginning of the movie. Ben kills this werewolf, and then he finds out that it is, surprise, his dad.
In a twist that nobody saw coming.
I know, right? It led you there like a blind person to water. Anyway, how it goes on from there is Ben then has to come to terms with the fact that he is going to end up like his dad. And you can tell he's trying to communicate with his family to tell them something, but they don't know what it is. But by the end of the movie, they're too afraid of him because he's become essentially an animal. So they run off to the same deer blind that he hid from the wolf in the beginning of the movie to then kill Ben because his daughter.
He's in pain.
He's in pain. His daughter says that he wants this to stop because it's brought out in the beginning of the movie that his job is to protect her, but her job is to read minds. So she reads his mind and ends up ending his suffering. And the movie ends with them staring off into the Oregonian wilderness.
So I want to say, I thought the movie was going to end with them feeding the Wolfman the mushrooms, because they really stopped and talked about those mushrooms at the beginning. And I was like, okay, that's going to be like something they call back at the end. Nothing.
Nope.
I was like, okay. I mean, I guess it was just setting up like the dad was trying to be a survivalist, but I was like 100% sure that's what was going to happen. I was like, okay, they're going to like poison this thing somehow.
Well, I'll be honest with you. The twist, I mean, my theater had like one, separate family that sat way in front of me, and I'm glad they did, because I'm sitting there just like literally as soon as I saw the twist, I was so befuddled. I was just so stupid. I was like, are you serious? Are you serious? Right at the screen. So I'm like, this is so stupid.
What are we saying the twist was? That it was his dad?
Yeah. I mean, it's not really a twist, but it's like, it's obviously painted like a Bob Ross painting, and it's leading you to the conclusion. But
yeah, because at the beginning when he gets the letter, they say, they
say his dad's gone missing, not that he's dead.
Yeah, they said they finally decided to declare him dead because he went missing. And you're like, that's okay, bad. Last time we saw him, he went looking for the Wolfman. So what happened? Plus, what happened in the 2010 one? It's not like it's fresh ground, That's where, like, there's parts of this movie I really enjoyed, and then other parts I was like,
I'll be honest,
hate it, but I didn't love it,
I loved the movie, or I was like on board with the movie up until like the spider scene. Because it was showing the abilities and everything was like kind of like getting more twisted. I'm like, sick. This is going to get more, turned. It's going to go to the next day. And I'm like, okay, so we're still going. Okay, so it's the same night. Okay, so what's the point of this? And yeah, it lost me pretty much at the point where about like the halfway point of the movie.
See, I like the spider scene just for the fact that it makes you think it's the werewolf outside, but then you realize you're hearing it from his point of view.
Exactly.
So I did like that scene. Like there are some good scenes. I'll say the beginning scene with him and his dad in the blind
Was fantastic.
was great. Yeah. It's very Jaws-esque where you don't see the monster, but you hear it. You see like kind of little brief glimpses of it.
Yeah, I mean, even
behind and stuff.
Like to that point too, like the woods scene where like after they crash the truck, 1000% on board. Building the tension, the monster's there. You know, it's kind of incrementally just getting more intense. Werewolves coming. They don't know how to stop it. They don't know what it is. It was fantastic. It was a great way to build up to a werewolf, reveal.
If you can call it a werewolf.
Yeah.
One thing
werewolf disease.
Werewolf disease. Oh no, it's goblin disease. Yeah.
Exactly. He's coming.
One thing I did like in the movie was the sound design. I thought whoever made the sound and everything did a really good job. Maybe not music, but like just the sound and the sound mixing, I thought they did.
Well, I will say this: the chick that played the wife, like, she was not really. She did not convince me that she cared for her husband in any way. Like the way she was like talking to him, she was like, "Honey, no, I care for you. Why are you doing this? Stop. We're going to a hospital." I'm like, this is rough.
Yeah, she had some good acting scenes when it was just her, I'll say.
Yeah.
But her, and maybe this is the dialogue too. The writing wasn't great in some of the scenes. It was just kind of bland.
It was pretty bad. Well, yeah. It's like the one scene that sticks out to me, and it will for forever, is when the girl asks her dad, like, "What was that, Daddy?" And instead of like giving her some sort of reassurance or like lying to her, or like when she asks if he's dead, he, instead of being like, "Oh, no, honey, Derek's fine. He's totally okay. Like, we'll see him again sometime. I'm sure of it." He just goes, "I don't know, probably." And it's like, okay, so what parent says that to their kid? Are you serious?
I mean, also, you saw what happened to him. You know as much as I do, kid.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? They're there, but it's pretty much dead. Now go to sleep. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what other, because there was, like you said, the werewolf point of view and how they'd kind of flip back and forth. Because that's something when he was like talking and like fixing something with the bookshelf and like his family was just kind of staring at them. I was like, why are they just staring at him? But then it made sense because I guess he wasn't able to talk already at that point.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other things, like, I 100% agree. I think honestly too, like one of the other cool scenes is when they're in the barn and they don't know he's in there with them. And they're just sitting there in the dark, and then all of a sudden it turns the camera around, and then he's just sitting there staring at him in the dark.
You can see him perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, that was insane. That was really cool to me. One thing I will say is the guy that played Ben, the way that he acted through some of that makeup too, like he was able to show like he still had some of his humanity there, where he was like, you could tell like he was looking at them like, "Let me outside," or like, "I'm sorry," or like he had that worry in his face where he's like, "I don't know what's happening, and this has to stop." Like I thought he did a really good job, at least emoting through some of that get up, and at least using his eyes as a tool, since he didn't really have like a lot of use of his face, to show like that worry, that concern, and just like the understanding that is needed for this kind of role, for where he is deteriorating in the way he is.
Yeah, no, I thought he did good. Definitely by far the best performance. There's not a lot of actors in here that get any real screen time. The Derek guy definitely comes off kind of creepy, so I guess he did good, Yeah. As far as like kid actors, this isn't like Sixth Sense or something, but not bad. It's better than we got in Jurassic World, so I'll say.
I just wish we didn't have somebody with a lisp.
And Julia, what's her name? Julia Garner, right? Who played the wife. At parts she did good. Other parts, again, it might have just been the writing. I think the writing was the weakest part of the film for sure. Yeah. Maybe one of the weakest parts. We'll talk about maybe the other one. I don't know. Might have got spoiled by Halloween Horror Nights. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my so Halloween Horror Nights, obviously everyone saw the Wolfman. And I think Lee Winnell was trying not to show the Wolfman because it was going to be vastly different than what we've seen in the past. It didn't look quite like what we saw on Halloween Horror Nights, so I don't know if they changed it in post after as much as they could have, or if the Halloween Horror Nights just wasn't 100%. I don't know. That's what I was.
And my question is why?
Why what?
Why change it from why not do a classic werewolf? Why did they need to make it this like fetus looking thing? Like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Again, that was something. The overall reaction when the Halloween Horror Nights came out was we're like, what is that? Like, it looks more zombie than
like if this wasn't called Wolfman, if this would have been called something just like The Woods or something like that, all right, would you have been like, oh, it's a werewolf movie?
Maybe.
I'm not sure I would have called it that. Like, and we also never got any of the lore on how the werewolves worked here. Like, is it a full moon thing? Has his dad been turning into a werewolf? Like, or is he just permanently a werewolf? What happened to the original wolf that attacked and turned him? Like at the end of the movie when they're like looking into the woods or whatever, you should have seen like the original one like run behind them or something and then end,
I thought the same thing. I'm like, this is I feel like I should care more, but I don't know how any of this works, so I really don't.
Yeah, they never set up any kind of lore for the werewolf. At least in like the 2010 and the original, we have, the flower, all that kind of stuff. Like there's reasoning behind things. There is kind of what we mentioned. There's a story. There's actually something to care about. There's stakes. This was just some weird creatures attacking my family. Oh no, we have to survive. Oh shit, it was my dad. And now I'm a monster too. Okay, let's kill him. All right. That's it.
Yeah.
This movie, again, it felt like a 45-minute episode of something as opposed to the like hour-and-a-half movie that it is.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely way too long.
Yeah,
they could have cut it down by at least 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think the biggest dive we got into lore was just that none of the locals went out at night. So maybe it only comes out at night, like it hibernates. But that's the biggest dive into any of the lore that we got. Outside of there was at least maybe 4 Wolfmen, right?
See, we have no idea. Yeah. And again, when we hear his dad talking to his friend about we have to kill this thing, that was like 30 years ago.
Mm.
What has happened in that 30 years that these men obviously knew about this creature? They've been trying to kill it. Like, have they found any? Did they find out there's a whole pack of them? Did any of the other guys get turned? And why did he never tell his son anything? Like, even as an adult, he could have been like, all right, listen, there's some shit going down. Or just like, hey, if I go missing, it may be because I'm doing this thing. I get that they were estranged, but I just feel like 30 years, if he's been trying to hunt this thing that long with a group of other guys, more stuff should have been out there. The timeline of this movie made no sense.
Well, plus with it being in Oregon and them just bringing out, the specific, Native American name for what a werewolf is, you would think they would like incorporate that in the story because I'm sure with that land where they're at, they got to be close to a Native American community somewhere.
Yeah, there's got to be some tribal land. Like they should have, instead of running into like that Derek guy or whatever, they should have maybe like ran into a reservation. And once they found out where he was going, like warn him about it, tell him more of like the legends, and that they've, like, yeah, we have members go missing every couple of weeks because of that, something that just set up that it's a bigger threat. Because the way they did it, I'm sorry, it just made no sense. It was very isolated and bubbly for something that did not fit that format.
100% agree. Plus, with the lore of the Wolfman, it is so much more extensive. I mean, literally, the movie that came out in the late 30s, early 40s, the original Wolfman, that's dictated a lot of werewolf, just beliefs and or stigma. There is a lot of stuff that they could have done differently. I think they should have extended this out into multiple days. It should not have progressed as quickly as it did. The sickness is what I'm referring to. He didn't need to be a werewolf within 2 hours of getting scratched. I thought that was stupid. I feel like they took a lot of the tension that we obviously, as we talked about, we come to werewolf movies for. We come to see, the dude being horrified of the fact that he's losing control of himself to something he doesn't understand. And if they were going to go with because they made the very distinct dialogue choice of talking about scarring your children when you don't intend to, there could have been a deeper conversation about generational trauma with that sort of thing happening where you just start doing stuff you don't understand. You're like, wait a minute, my dad did this or something, or I got this from my, beloved.
Yeah, like seeing how he was becoming his dad.
Exactly.
And what does he do to change being the mistakes his father made? And then I would have loved to have seen it. Like maybe he's transforming at night and like he would just like wake up in the woods in the morning or something. Or, she's like, where were you? I know you got up and like, and he doesn't remember any of it. Like that kind of thing. Like the classic werewolf tropes of, he realizes he's becoming this monster and he has to deal with, I'm a danger to everybody at night. Like, what am I becoming? What do I do? How do I balance that? And what is the solution? Instead, again, it was all one night. He saw the tattoo and was like, oh, that was my dad. Like, it would have been so much more powerful if he would have done it. And then like the form turned completely back into his dad, just dead.
See, well, here, like 100% agree. I think honestly, they could have done two where it's like, he doesn't know if his dad's like really dead, or like they wake up in the morning one day and like, they thought they left the knife here, but it's over there. And there's like, random like blood trails left over from like beef or whatever that they know they didn't touch, but they're like, where did this come from? Like, who's getting in here? Because my dad's dead and this is, I didn't do this, you didn't do this. Create that kind of tension.
Even maybe like getting mad at the kid and the kid's like, I didn't do it, and then like driving more of a wedge between her and either the mom that she already isn't the favorite for, like it had so much potential and instead they just made a shitty movie instead.
Exactly. And I mean, it's like to your point too, David, of like having those like tropes in there. When it comes to movies like this, like the werewolf is it's a fantastical creature. It's a thing of fantasy. Its entire place is, mythological, magical ideas. That still needs to be in place in these kind of movies. When you try to be too realistic with it, like making it a sickness, that's when you kind of start losing some of that luster. And then it ends up just making the movie kind of stupid because you try to over-explain the science of it instead of being like, it's a fucking werewolf.
I mean, yeah.
Let's get into it.
And it works so much better when it's like it's a curse.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
And you could even say that if you wanted to bring in the whole generational thing, maybe it's like because his dad got turned, it's in his blood already just because they're related and like it passes down or something like.
Or like the entire reason he wants to hunt down the werewolf is to end the curse because he's like, I want to protect my kid, don't you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and then he at the end, maybe he sacrifices himself to save the daughter.
100%.
Like he knows what's going on. It's not I read his mind. He wants to end it. Like, no, that's so stupid.
Absolutely.
So I've seen some people online talking about things they would have changed, and I want to get your guys' perspective on these because I was like, one person said maybe tied in again with the Native American lore, but make it more like that's what people have been seeing with like Sasquatch sightings are these like wolfmen. And I was like, that seems very vastly different. And then another one was instead of the twist with a tattoo, like they're in the house, they think they got the doors, locked, everything's fine, and then the door unlocks because the dad has the keys. And
that would have been cool too.
Yeah. I was like, that's not a bad idea. Just because then
like the dad sets this entire thing up to lure them back. 100% would have loved to see something like that happen, where he's like, "You have to own this part of yourself, Ben. This is who you are," because he's running from his past or who he really is.
Yeah, or like there's a whole pack of them that have like brought the dad. Like all of those hunters that went after it 30 years ago, they're all werewolves now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something like that, Yeah, something like that. And he's like, "Son, this is your destiny, just like it was mine, and this is how we're gonna finally be together. We're gonna be werewolves together." And he rejects that because he doesn't want to be like his dad, and then kills himself to end the line. Something like that.
Absolutely. That would have been so much better, just execution and use of the actual story they set up.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, because overall the story is like pretty straightforward. I mean, there's not a lot of depth or anything to talk about. It's
not even in the characters. I didn't care about any of them.
Nope. I mean, when I'm literally in the theater, Dude, it's like as the daughter's like touching his forehead and like saying all that, and where it's supposed to be a touching moment, I'm laughing in the back because it's so stupid and just so not at all payoffable. That this was just an entire scene that was just so stupid. I'm just cackling in the back. It shows how
Invested you were.
uninvested, but just how little like Lee Winnell can do good-ish horror. He cannot write really well, and that
No.
kind of needs to be where
He
people
can
start.
set up. He gets some good scenes in his mind, but he can't do dialogue. He can't do build up. He can't like. It's just not there.
100% stunt coordinator, or at least a planner of like ideas for action in an actual movie.
Sure.
100% rely on him for that. Anything else? Absolutely not.
Yeah, because there's definitely things in here that worked really well, but it needed some more touch up.
I mean, just the fact
to
that the
come up
wolf
here and like
man looked bad, your movie was already ruined. Like, bro, it's not hard to make a scary werewolf.
Yeah, when you're running around looking like a bald Robin Williams out in the woods, that's just not intimidating.
I mean, honestly, like, and the one thing that we love so much about dogs and when you see like looking in their eyes, like you can see that personality, that creature, and make that connection. If that last scene with him and his daughter, if he would have been just like a giant wolf and you saw like the humanity reflecting in his eyes and the pain and stuff, it would have shot that up 10, 20 times better of being able to read that and, get where she's coming from of saying he needs, he wants us to end it.
Well,
Now,
David,
when
you
you
know
say
that one
giant
scene?
wolf, though, do you mean the giant wolves from Twilight?
I mean, the Twilight werewolves looked 100 times better than this one.
I mean, they were wolves, so
Yeah, they were actual, and technically in Twilight, I believe they were not actually wolves, like werewolves. I think they make a point of saying it's a different kind of thing, like a shapeshifter thing.
like
They're
a lightning
not,
rope or something like that.
yeah, because they say genuine werewolves that do also exist in that universe apparently are the ones that only turn at like the wolf. I think they're called like children of the moon or something, like some native term, but those are ones that they can't control it. The actual thing that Jacob and his tribe are, it's something else wolf adjacent, but it is not genuine werewolves the same way we think of them.
But David, real quick to your point, like you remember that scene where he is like in werewolf mode, where he's like about to fully turn, and his daughter's like touching his head, and he can like kind of start to understand her a little bit. I thought it was going to be very much like the stereotypical werewolf story where he goes off, animalizes for a while, starts going on a rampage, and then the only thing that stops him is him being like, "Daddy, stop!"
Right, like remember, like reaching his humanity inside of him.
Exactly, and then
And
rips
like
him back
bringing
out.
him back. Yeah. See, something like that, so much better. And there's like, again, there's so much lore and stuff behind werewolves. We don't need something new. There's no reason to reinvent this wheel. It's been done. People like it. Just make a good classic werewolf story, and this would have done great.
Yeah, we don't need a Coke 2.0. We just like the Coke recipe. Leave it the way it is.
Give us more of what we already like.
You're saying no Pepsi, just Coke, Grayson?
I haven't asked, but it's all in just Coke over here.
I'm 1,000 times on Team Coke.
All right, so I mean, I don't know anything else you want to add, Grayson. I don't know what else there is to add to this one.
I'll sum up my feelings on the movie this way. The beginning showed a lot of promise, but by the end of it, I was like, I'm literally just checking my phone, being like, how much longer we got? 20 minutes. Are you serious? It was a lot of missed potential. It really didn't need to be. It did not need to be this drawn out. It didn't need to be, trying to reinvent, like trying to put their own spin on the werewolf story. We're here to see it a certain way. I'm always, down for seeing like different features of that depicted a different way, like, the werewolf vision or the hearing or like the actual tortured part of him having to go through the distortion between becoming beast and man. Thought that was sick with the werewolf vision, but the overall story just did not make me appreciate all the good parts of this movie enough to give to really care about it. So it's honestly just, if it's on TV and I got nothing else to do, I might watch it, but that's a big maybe.
Yeah, I would say it's better than some of the other movies we've watched. It's definitely better than Joker and Venom 3.
You know what? I'm not even.
The Crow.
It's better than it's better than The Crow. I don't know if it was better than Joker and Venom 3.
It was pretty much on par with that.
But yeah, if I'm going to talk about how much I was entertained, I think Venom, I was slightly more entertained, even with my animosity towards the Sonyverse.
I think Venom did know it was way more stupid, and they kind of leaned into it to where they tried to be serious, and then just did a bunch of stupid stuff, and you're like, please stop.
Oh, what?
Like-
Venom
like-
Horse wasn't super serious for you?
I mean, hey, look, it should have been won an Oscar, should be nominated right now. I'm going to be honest with you, but
Grayson, what about
It's
that
around.
dance scene they did in Vegas when he knew he was being tracked if he turned into Venom?
that's what I'm saying. Oscar worthy right there.
And
Nominated.
he stole the suit,
Hold him up.
even though his suit's power is to become any suit he wanted.
Yeah, so stupid. I can't become a suit because that'll attract the symbiote hunter. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I would say if someone said I had to watch either Joker, Venom 3, or Crow, or this, I would pick this.
Yeah. I'd watch this over Joker too. I'd watch this over The Crow.
I'd watch Venom again over this, though.
True.
Venom's
Like
at
I would
least
watch the first 45
happier,
minutes
I guess.
of this willingly, but after that,
All right, so David, your final thoughts on this one?
It was a bad movie, and I feel like every movie except the one that we voted for has been bad. This is not being on the Pop Culture channel; it's the Bad Movie channel. We've got to change this. So luckily, next month we will be. But I don't know, Keegan. You're just attracted to terrible movies.
Unfortunately, Sonic, the one people voted for, is our least watched one. So I don't know why people voted for it. They ain't gonna watch our deep dive.
one thing I do want to say before we move on, the entire Saw homage thing near the end of the movie
Didn't need to
felt a
happen.
little just like Lee Winnell doing that for 5 minutes. It was so unnecessary.
Guys,
And
don't forget, I made these movies too.
It's like, okay, man, cool. That
Did
doesn't
he
mean the
make
movie's any
those? I
good.
just thought he starred in them. He was in the first one, right? I didn't know.
He was a writer.
Oh, he's a writer?
He was a
Well, he was
writer.
the
in
guy
first one as well.
that
He took over on some of the later ones.
Okay.
no,
I
but
know he was
he
the
was
actor
the
in
guy
the
that got
first one.
trapped in the room. Yeah.
He's the
Yeah.
one who cut off, who was supposed to cut off. I don't know. He was the one that let the key go down the drain.
Did you ever see the mashup of like Impractical Jokers with Saw?
Yes.
And they're like, okay, stand up, and he stands up, and they're like, all right, now it's a game over, and they just start cracking up. Oh, we need that movie over this. Yeah. So my final thoughts is there's stuff in here. I think we've said it that I liked. Definitely some good spots, but there's some parts that it drug. There's some things I would have changed. Design being one of them. I guess it kind of fits with what they're doing, but like David said, then just call it the woods or the monster from the woods or something else, not the wolf. Well, I guess not.
To me, yeah, I would not have been as harsh on it if it wasn't playing off the classic Wolfman story.
Yeah.
If it would have been its own just creature in the woods story, I wouldn't have had nearly as much expectations or expect there to be so much. But when you're trying to carry on a legacy, there's certain things you have to pick up and do, and they did none of them.
Or even maybe just make it like a version of The Fly.
I mean, because
It
Derek
seems like that's what
shouldn't-
they were going for.
shouldn't Derek be a werewolf now?
No,
I
they showed
mean-
his body ripped up in pieces.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, to
We
your
got
point, David, it's
confirmation. It was on screen. We know he's dead. Because at first I was like, okay, so he's coming back. We're gonna have like all these werewolves at some point.
I wouldn't
we
even
see the
call them
arm at the end,
werewolves.
that is. But
Well,
yeah,
Did they ever use the term werewolf?
nope,
I didn't think so. Yeah.
not once.
They didn't even call him
So-
a wolf man outside of the
Nobody even, yeah,
beginning
except for
credits.
the native term being about like wolf or whatever is the only thing we ever heard about a wolf.
Yep.
So I wouldn't even call this a werewolf movie personally. It had none of the weird, like they didn't use silver to kill it. There was no curse. There was nothing. Just a generic horror movie that belongs in January with all the other shitty movies.
Yeah, it's unfortunate this came out in January, but I understand why it did. This movie just was not should not have been made by Liam Winnell. Kind of like what David said. It's kind of like hearing that John Williams is coming to perform with the local orchestra, and then you find out it's just some dude who's never been on stage before, just using the name of John, whose name is John Edgar Williams, for some reason making himself sound like John Williams. It used the name in a very inappropriate way. It should have been something else entirely. Because if you want to do something different with the werewolf, legacy. You don't use the classic title. You don't come out with that as your lead in with, a classic title name. That's a bad look.
All right, so David, rating, recommendation.
I would say 4 out of 10. I would not recommend you go see it unless you really don't like yourself. Jump on streaming, watch the 2010 one, watch Werewolf in London, watch Twilight. Almost any other werewolf media is going to give you better. It's a pass for me.
I don't know if I could recommend Twilight. Are we just talking the first one or all of them?
I mean, have you read all the books?
We're just saying the movies.
Have you seen all the movies?
Yes, I have seen all the movies.
They weren't bad. If you watch them, I mean, it at least tells a story.
Man, that sixth one, or whatever the last one was with the vision that turned out to not be the real fight. That was so dumb.
Well, they had to do that in the movie because in the book, they don't even have, none of that happens because she shows up with the kid and, they show that they're fine. But they had to make it more cinematic.
Also, Jacob having, a connection with the newborn kid is just weird.
Look, it's an imprint thing, Keegan.
I take that over everything that happened in this piece of shit.
At least that's funny.
American Werewolf in London, yes, the much better movie. Definitely go watch that. At some point, we got to talk about that because that is a really good classic.
It's a classic.
Movie. Yeah. There are some good, werewolf movies at some point we'll talk about. Greyson, what about you?
I want to go a little bit higher than David. I appreciate, I thought the movie looked good. Again, most of the movie was not bad, in my opinion. It felt a little off, but about halfway through, I got really uninterested. The wrap-up of the movie was really stupid, but I'm going to give this, honestly, a 6 out of 10. It's enjoyable. It entertained me enough. The parts that were, supposed to be there to build up suspense and actually set up a werewolf movie, it got it all right. But once it started jumping off from that actual story point, it got really bad. And because of that, it's not that great of a movie. First half, fantastic, builds attention, super, had me invested, but it drops off pretty quick after that.
Yeah, I'm going to give it the same rating as Greyson. 6 out of 10. Second best one we've done for pop culture one by far. Much better than the other ones because there are some good cinematography. It's not trying to be overly pretentious like Joker. It's not trying to be, I don't know.
Okay, but if you're looking at just cinematography, Joker was fine cinematography wise.
And I mean, the story wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst, but it
was more that it ended terribly. If Joker would have ended differently, it would have elevated it a lot more than it did. But from a purely cinematic standpoint, the shots were beautiful. They did great lighting. The sets were fine. I had no issues with any of that. And the sound design was awesome. There didn't need to be the songs, but they did them right. I think you just didn't like the movie very much. You're judging it by story.
I actually gave it a decent rating.
See? So there you go. So you should think this is better, right?
I would still watch Wolfman over Joker. It's shorter for sure.
Yeah.
By almost an hour.
But because they couldn't even fill the time that they had with a decent story.
See, the hard part is that you can feel that too.
Yeah. A movie this short shouldn't drag.
Yeah, there are parts where I was very tempted to look at my phone, but there were people very close to me, so I was like, I'm not going to be somebody that we know. And Greyson knows that turns on his phone in the movies.
It's not. Is it? Never mind. I know who it is.
No, yeah, but no. As far as it had some good sound. I really thought the sound design, especially in the theater, the werewolf vision, and as far as that, I thought worked out well. The beginning scene and the deer blind worked out well, and I guess going full circle, there was just parts where it lagged, or there's just points where I was like, okay, how far have we gone? Oh, we still have a little bit to go, and I just think it could have used some more fine tuning. And I think with fine tuning and more of a werewolf-esque design or a different title, this one could have been a much better movie. Definitely better than The Invisible Man, but unfortunately it just kind of falls short on some of the other aspects that I would have wanted. But
You know what would have made this? I got it. This is what I would have done. It would have been, they would have found out about the curse and that his dad's been living in the woods now because he is the werewolf and trying to break it. And then they bond together to break the curse. His dad dies, sacrificing himself for his son or whatever, but it's broken. His son's not a werewolf anymore or whatever. And they're going back home and talking about it. Like as a family, they've all kind of reconciled and then in the car, like as they're going home, and then you'd see the girl in the back and her eye would like change real quick to like a wolf eye to show that it had passed to her. And then that's the end of the movie.
A way better movie than what we got, David. But yeah, I mean, it's serviceable. It's not the best. I would not recommend it like during Halloween. It'd be good if, got nothing else to do during the daytime and it's on TV, but it was enjoyable.
I'd recommend this as a Netflix and chill movie where you bring somebody over and you have no intentions of watching more than about 20 minutes of the movie.
I forgot that was a rating that we once did.
That's what this is. This kind of movie. You're watching the first bit, you're like, oh, okay. And then your attention is free to wonder and you don't care that you missed everything that happened.
Oh, shit, he's dead. That's crazy. Yeah, no, it felt it kind of felt like Lee Winnell's a little bit high on his own writing. It felt like he was trying to be a little he felt like this was going to be a really good movie because the way it wrapped up, it felt like he thought that this was going to be well received.
Yeah, with them like looking out into the woods, like, oh, it's his childhood woods. And okay.
Yeah, they're uncertain. Oh, he's dying. It's artistic because he's dying where he was scared too, and now he's realizing he's scaring his little girl. It's like, buddy.
And she knows that he's going to protect her by them putting him out of his pain. Like, come on.
It was so corny. The ending was so corny, which, I mean, it brings down a lot in my book. So that I'll probably, the more that I think about it, the more upset I get at how stupid the ending is. So I'm probably going to give it like a 5.5. Graciously.
Would poison mushrooms have helped bump that up at all, Greyson?
No, because wolves don't eat mushrooms.
Hold on, no. It could have if they would have laced like the leftover rotting meat in his dad's freezer or whatever, or like they're running away from him because he's losing control of the human side of himself and falling into the actual animal side. The
only way poison mushrooms would have saved it for me is if they knew what to do with it, and the dad ate the poison mushrooms, knowing, that it would kill him. And that's how the other werewolf dies too, is by trying to eat the dad. And through his blood system or whatever, the mushrooms get into him as well. And they die together. And before they die, he kind of transforms back into the dad enough to be like, son, I'm sorry. They kind of have a reconcile as they both die.
Again, a better movie than what we got.
So that was Wolfman 2025. We will be back in February on the 17th. David, what movie are we going to be covering then?
We're going to be covering the brand new release of Bridget Jones' Diary. The new one's coming out. It has been several years since we've seen it, so we are excited to see what old Bridget's up to. I'm sure her love life's gone crazy since I think she got married in the last one, right? So we'll see how married life's treating her and what wild hijinks Hugh Grant has in store for her this time. Can't wait.
I don't know what's going to scare me more, Hugh Grant in that movie or Hugh Grant in Heretic.
I mean, I think it's going to be a toss-up.
I mean, performances of his career.
No, that was Love Actually.
Are we actually doing that? I thought we had a different movie on the docket.
The fact that you didn't know, that you're like, is that really what we're doing?
Well, I didn't know. I was like, maybe you were like, you know what, we're gonna do this one instead. So I was like, maybe.
No. I mean, we can definitely do Bridget Jones eventually if we want to do like some rom-com stuff. But no, we are 100% doing Captain America Part 4 with old Sam Wilson taking up the shield and facing off against Red Hulk. It's going to be the next installment of the Marvel Universe. We haven't really seen one. Last year was pretty light Marvel-wise. They kind of pulled back. So we only got Deadpool and Wolverine, which was amazing. I think we can all agree, fantastic movie.
But
so this is
a Fox movie.
Well, this is kind of wrapping that stuff up.
Yeah.
So this is kind of getting us back in touch with characters that we haven't seen in a couple years. We're not sure what they're coming into it. Of course, Harrison Ford stepping into the role of Thunderbolt Ross after the unfortunate passing of the original actor. So we're finally going to get to see him becoming Red Hulk, which has been in the works since we've seen him back in the original Hulk. We know Liv Tyler possibly is back from that Hulk movie as well. So a lot of good cameos. Wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Mr. Regular Hulk himself too at some point. So it should be good.
Blake Nelson's back as the
Yeah.
leader.
We got the leader coming back from. There's a lot of Hulk throwbacks in this one, so Hulk fans should definitely be happy about this. And a lot of rumors of some other cool characters we might be seeing in this movie. But yeah, I'm looking way more forward to that than probably any of the ones we've done so far. So hopefully, even with all the reshoots, they finally got it right.
I mean, fourth time's a charm is the saying. Grayson, what are your thoughts on Brave New World?
I can't wait to see what the 5th round of reshoots does to fix up this movie even more. It's going to be great. Honestly, after seeing the new trailer, has me giving it a little bit more credit than I probably should, as I tend to do. I think honestly, it has, from what I've seen, just the possibility of being, a throwaway Marvel movie. Could be good, could be absolute ass. We have no way to find out until we get to that theater, but I have a feeling it'll be pretty much the same as what we got here. 5 out of 10. Lucky to walk away with it, but
oh no, I think it's going to be way better.
We'll see. I'm going in with my expectations low. If it goes higher, fantastic. If it goes lower, it is what it is.
For the record, the movie is called Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy, and not only is it coming out the same day as Captain America, unless I'm reading this wrong, it looks like it's going straight to Peacock streaming, so it could even be free.
So you're saying it's going to be good. I will say our viewer count went down as soon as we started talking about Bridget, so maybe the pop culture people don't want to watch that.
Or maybe
we will.
Maybe your core audience was men, and we're going to actually start appealing to women for a change.
Or we'll just have a different podcast where we review. Now, as far as Brave New World, I am excited to see some of the characters come back. Obviously, from the Incredible Hulk as well, where it's kind of been Marvel's black sheep just because it's obviously a different studio that made that one. And Ed Norton was the Hulk there. So it's nice to see some callbacks from there.
What do you mean a different studio? It was still Marvel Studios.
No, Incredible Hulk was Universal, I think.
Nope. With Edward Norton?
Yeah, it was Universal.
No, it was not. That was the second Marvel MCU movie. Iron Man was first, and that's why Robert Downey Jr. is in that movie.
Yeah, but that
was produced
wasn't
by Marvel, but it was released by Universal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Yeah, because Iron Man's Paramount.
Well, they haven't made a full-fledged Hulk movie in, what, a decade? Is because
Universal still holds the rights.
I think it was still done by Marvel Studios as their own independent studio.
They were brought in as producers. Universal Pictures was the distributor, and
so the Marvel Studios made it, and then it was distributed by Universal. So it was like a partnership.
Exactly. So Universal still owns the majority of the rights since they were the distributor, but they let Marvel do what they wanted to do with it.
But that's also why we haven't gotten any standalone Hulk films, is because Universal has the rights.
And because they've all kind of sucked.
Yeah, rumor has it though, they are working on a Hulk movie. So
it's been rumored for what, at least the same amount of time since the last
over
one?
a decade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming on what? No, 17. Yeah, 17 years.
Yeah, I think we may finally get World War Hulk only because we're going into the Battle World stuff.
Yep. I think Universal finally played nice in this sandbox because they need a hit real bad.
Yeah, I'll say I think I have more.
I think their rights. I think their rights may have run out and reverted back to Marvel. Because if they don't make a movie in X amount of years, that's the same reason that Fox kept pumping out X-Men and Fantastic Four. Because they would lose the right. That's how Marvel got Daredevil back.
Which we'll be covering at some point.
I mean, I'm assuming it's March.
So they actually have ended. They ended in June of 2023 because it's been 15 years since they made any movements on the property.
Yeah, because I think it was so tied up that yes, they technically Marvel couldn't do it, but Universal also couldn't do it without Marvel saying yes.
Yeah.
So Marvel said, "We'll wait you out."
We got enough.
What happened with Sony?
I mean, that's why Sony keeps pumping out the stupid Spider-Man-less Spider movies, because as long as they're making them, they still retain the rights to all of Spider-Man and that whole universe.
Yeah, and if they made them, then Marvel couldn't use those villains in their movies.
Right. Anybody they used in their pictures became persona non grata unless Sony said okay.
Yeah, which was also really dumb because it's come out now that Sony could have used Spider-Man and Tom Holland. That's why they filmed him for Venom. But they just decided not to, which is the weirdest
because it wouldn't have made sense to have Tom Holland in any of the Venom movies.
But to just not use a Spider-Man, like put Andrew Garfield in there.
I would have done Andrew Garfield, but I would not have used Tom Holland.
Yeah, but just to not use a Spider-Man, like that was an actual choice. Very strange.
Yeah, Sony does not make good decisions about literally anything. I don't think they've made a good decision since
Spider-Man 2.
Probably, yeah.
Actually, no. There's probably been other Sony non-Marvel movies that they've done well. I just don't know.
What other Columbia pictures have come out that were, half decent?
But yes, to the point. Next month, Captain America: Brave New World, hopefully is going to be very, very good, and we will see you just a couple days after release to talk all about it.
Yeah. Well, and David, what projects should people be on the lookout for you?
I have no idea. Tune in and find out. Abnormal Voyages coming at you.
And Greyson, what about you? Any movie reviews people should be on the lookout for?
It won't be a movie review. It'll be more of a talk about just old TV show. Never really watched How I Met Your Mother until recently, and dived into that show. And I'm going to talk about how it still holds up in today's day and age.
Can I be on that with you? I love that show.
Absolutely.
It is such a damn good show. It's probably one of my favorite all-time sitcoms.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will. My love for the show has definitely grown. When I grew up around that same time, I was like, I don't know, the show seems kind of corny. Now being the same age as, everybody in
it is still just as funny.
100%. Jokes still land, still is relevant, still, addresses the change from being social to internet, junkies that we all are nowadays.
And honestly, I think they did a very good job of mixing in some very serious subjects and things in with a lot of the humor. Like there's some actual, like really good, like words of wisdom in that show.
Absolutely. I will say the countdown episode, definitely hits home every single time.
So I'm sure did you know that they didn't tell him what the countdown was?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was told that at the end, Lily was going to come out of the taxi and say she's pregnant. Yeah, that's the script. That's what they wrote, and that's what he was expecting. And so his emotion and everything, like the surprise and everything that happens, is 100% the actor finding out for the first time that his dad died.
Yeah. Probably like one of the best written shows up until like probably I want to say season 5. Like it's still a good show, but I think like it was at its peak writing around season 4 and season 5.
It fell off a little bit.
Big life events came out. Yeah.
But I will also say, I miss that they don't do sitcoms like this really anymore.
Absolutely.
The era of sitcoms has kind of fallen off. I wish we'd get a good solid 20-something episodes per season, great show. We need something like that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it was an honest look at life that was still, network appropriate, but still kind of pushed the limit of what was appropriate. And I think that kind of needs to make a comeback because it was just inventive. It was, it made the show what it was by being restricted by those confinements of broadcasting, but they were able to get around that in the most
clever. It made them be creative,
innovative ways. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, if they did it now, it would be a Netflix streaming show with 8 episodes a season, and you would see graphic scenes with Barney every episode.
Yeah.
And it would have gotten canceled after 2 seasons.
It's like I didn't see.
Actually, knowing today, you would have found out that Barney was the mother all along, and he gets surgery near the end of the show.
Probably. Yeah, keep an eye out for that. That's going to be a few weeks process just to at least break it down season by season. But going to start working on that and get that going. So yeah.
Yeah, and stay tuned. Tomorrow, obviously, we'll be back to talk sports. We'll talk the divisional round of the NFL playoffs as well as the national championship.
Which is going on right now as we speak.
Yeah, which is live right now, as well as we'll give our predictions for who we think will be going to the Super Bowl. And then this week, we will also be releasing episode 2 of Goosebumps. So stay tuned for that. I think all of us are enjoying watching that one and discussing that. But until next time, guys, for more pop culture chats, click that link to your left. For more about us here at Culz, including Bud's Bar's Best Burgers, click that link to your right. And don't forget to hit that like and give us a subscribe. And tell us a movie in 2025 that you'd like us to cover. Tell us in the comments.
And why it's Bridget Jones crazy about that boy. Crazy